welcome back to Drum Key. This is the podcast where we like to talk about everything drums, drummers, and drum industry. A little bit of that from our 2 cents running the retail shop here. We're recording this in our home away from home, Drums Etc., the Drummers Pro Shop.
In beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Shawn.
Ooh.
Beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Indeed.
So beautiful that our guest moved here.
Yeah, I did. Just a year and a half ago.
Awesome. I'm Adam Steck, Shawn Groff. Our guest today is Ed Haggard, fellow drum nerd enthusiast, percussionist, drummer of all sorts, all sizes and shapes.
Yep.
So we're happy to have you here.
Great.
On our show. Basically, we just gab about drums. And I've already done this multiple times with you. Every time you come in, we gab about drums.
Yeah.
So we're just taking what we normally do downstairs and just putting it up here in the studio.
Yep.
And that's how it goes.
That's it. We just record our conversations, man.
And all of a sudden, we have a show.
And all of a sudden, we have a show.
There it is.
It's
a wonderful thing.
Love it. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. When I moved here, I went, look, there's a drum shop right there, not a mile from my house.
Yeah.
And look at its cool name, Drums Etc. I think names are important, you know. That's why my action is the love drums, you know.
Absolutely.
That gets people's attention. But no, Drums Etc. That was a good name.
It. Simple. I'm glad I didn't have to come up with it because being in multiple bands and everything, my least favorite part about it
coming
is
up with a name.
It's not necessarily coming up with it. It's deciding on something. And the more people that you have, the tougher it is to get a consensus.
Right.
And technically, I know that we'll get into talking about the drum circles that you've been involved with here, but those were days where I wasn't here. So technically, I don't know if you and I have had a official meeting yet. But my name is Shawn.
Oh,
Shawn, nice to meet you.
Is that S-E or S-H?
That's S-H-A-W-N.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So nice to meet you. I've heard you have done some tremendous things here. And how many drum circles have you done? Here, here at the shop. I'm done here.
Yeah, I'm like, one.
Okay, you've done one. Okay,
I participated in one here, and I'm going to be facilitating or leading another one.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's coming up this weekend. Of course, by the time I get around to editing this, it will have already happened. But check out the next drum circle. I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, I got another one, I got to do this and split this up. It's like, I don't think it's going to be
We can splice this up real quick, right?
We can.
And do it before this weekend.
Yes.
That way it's a plug for the upcoming drum circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's done, just like that.
And before you go any further, I just want to say what a great thing that is. What a great thing. I'm so happy that you're doing this and that you're involved as well, and you live just right down the street. I can't wait to find out about the coming up here from Nashville and what all happened there with making the move and making the switch. I think it's such a great thing to have the drum circle here and get everyone drumming and get everyone involved and playing and learning. And I wish we had done it sooner. But
yeah, it surprised me because I went to Rick, the previous owner, and I talked to him. I was like, hey, do you ever do drum circles or anything like that? And he said he dabbled in it a couple times over the years, but nothing like regular.
Yeah.
He'd have like a one-off thing or a hand drum instructor would volunteer a jam or something, but I've always wondered why we hadn't done that, and I just said, I don't know much about it. You know that. I've talked to you about that. I'm very new to the drum circle, that sort of community, and I just said, I'm just going to put something out there and see if anyone shows up, and then what happens? A couple people show up, you meet them. The next one, a couple people show up, you meet them, and all of a sudden, you're welcomed into this other part of the community that's incredibly been so kind to us in the shop and everything. So you know all about it, though. You've been in that group for a long time, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, my basic story is when I was 12, my dad bought a set of Slingerland drums, set them up in front of his big bad stereo, and off as soon as he was out the door, off I went on it. And then I realized, okay, I started really focusing on the rhythm. What are these drummers doing? And even now, my music, I don't hear the lyrics that well. I'm listening to the drums and the melody and the overall feel, right? But 12, here I am wailing away on, it's a pretty typical set. And the thing I remember the most was at the time Stevie Wonder had really caught my attention. He had an album. There was he had a hit with a song called Uptight. I think it was, baby, everything is all right. Uptight, out of sight. But its featured drum move was, so it had a roll down the toms.
yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
that was like
That's what you
heaven
fell in
for a
love with.
kid,
I know.
Give me that. You can't have any more fun than that.
Oh my
you know?
gosh, no, that gets you.
That's it. Yeah, we've all had that. Well, we're gonna get into your story, and we're going the whole way through it. I don't know. Maybe we can abbreviate as much as we want, but we don't have any time limit here, so it's up to you.
Okay.
Usually we start when you found the drums, but we can start the whole way at birth if you'd like. No, I'm just kidding.
I did.
No.
My mother's heartbeat was really compelling.
Exactly. No, we'll start with the drums, but we'll get to that later in a different segment. Shawn and I have some fun segments, some things to spark some thoughts and conversation here.
All
so
right.
let's jump into our first segment called "Crank It Up, Turn It Down." All right, so "Crank It Up, Turn It Down" is where we talk about controversial drum habits or just things that drummers disagree on, or some do, some don't, and we just weigh in on them. So I'm gonna give you guys a topic, and if you dig it, crank it up. If it's not your style, turn it down.
Okay.
And I typically have no idea what he's gonna say here. So,
Sean's not prepped on anything.
Yeah, I'm not
Sean's
prepped.
fresh just like you.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
But
I prefer it that way.
I have a couple things here. So, first one, guys, crank it up, turn it down, playing on hand drums with sticks.
Well, yeah, I definitely got some ideas about that.
Yeah,
Some
go
hand
ahead.
drums, absolutely not. A traditional wooden djembe with the goat skin that's super cranked. It doesn't take a whole lot of whacking. You can make them go pow. And it's a lot of work to replace them. It's a significant job, and it's hard to learn how to really get good at that. And you can pay people $150, and who can do super pro jobs. So djembes, no. Congas, you can totally get away with it. Of course, it depends on too what kind of sticks are we talking about. Brushes, hey, you can hit anything with brushes. That's no problem. And then I have like these cajon brushes that actually I fool around with congas.
Yeah.
And they sound really cool.
Yeah.
And there's also mallets, of course, you can use that have the
Right.
soft either rubber tip or like a yarn mallet. So technically, yeah, you can play with sticks, but maybe they're not considered sticks because they're mallets. But any stick with a rubber tip on the end, you're not going to go through the hand drum. But I've seen a lot of drummers do that, just adding on kind of different effects. And if you're the only drummer in your band and you kind of maybe you need that chugging kind of, djembe groove or something, you're not going to drop your sticks and start playing that in the middle of the show.
Right.
So it's easy just to be able to use your sticks when it comes to that. But what you said is a good point. You're going to be busting heads. But if you can afford it, by all means, go ahead and do it.
Right, and I push it up to the edge. Okay,
Yeah.
Show me something new. I have seen drummers, particularly some djembes, use cow skin, which is significantly thicker, and you can get away with a lot more because it's like congas. They're also cow skin typically. So the skin's thick. If you can take it, whale. Go ahead, show me what you got. But they do call them hand drums for a reason.
That's true.
Sure.
It's a hand drum.
So you'd say crank it up sometimes, turn it down sometimes. Or
Well-
crank it up at your own discretion?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Maybe?
I have to go with crank it up, but again, there's gonna be that asterisk next to it, as you just said. But here's what you have to keep in mind: like they're not really made for that. They're not designed for that. But you know what? The drum police ain't gonna come get you if that's what you want to do and you want to play your hand drums. But don't come in wondering why it broke. Like that happens. Like this broke. I can't
Don't be
believe it.
surprised.
Yeah, don't be surprised when
Right.
you break.
Yeah,
a
I'll
head.
crank it up too, and I think it's one of those things where, I think that, from my experience talking with people, there are less people that are going for it and really like pushing the limits of stuff.
Yeah.
There's more people scared to experiment,
Right.
and they're a little bit more cautious. At least from my experience, a lot of people are a little more cautious, and I encourage them to be creative. To use this timpani mallet for cymbals. You know what I mean? Just because
Yeah.
it says that on it. This
Yeah.
cymbal says ride. Doesn't mean you can't hit it like a crash. You know what I mean?
Have you noticed though that now timpani mallets will say cymbal underneath?
Yeah, some of them they've added that.
And I've always, guys have come in over the years looking for cymbal mallets, and I would always sell them timpani mallets because that's what we had. And sometimes like cymbal mallets are usually yarn. And then some guys don't like the sound of that. It's a little too abrasive. And they went for the timpani mallets anyway. And I'd say, don't worry that it says timpani mallet. You can use these on cymbals. Again, the drum police are not going to come get you. But now they're actually putting /cymbal underneath the timpani.
Yeah. So I'm basically a crank it up on that.
Crank it up.
But don't hit my best hyper
Yeah,
crank
for
djembe
sure.
with
Yeah.
a stick. Anything else, you go.
Do whatever you want with your gear. Awesome. So I got a couple more here if you guys are willing.
Yeah.
So let's see. Second one. Crank it up, turn it down, wearing the same or consistent outfit every time that you play.
Is this a personal attack on me, or
This
dig
isn't
on-
personal. This isn't personal. But I thought of this because Shawn recently played, and he's like, oh, I got to get my shirt and tie ready. And I know that you typically wear the same thing.
I'm going to say, I have to say crank it up because I absolutely do this. And the reason I do this is because, when I would do shows and I'm playing a rock star out here, I'd look in my closet and go, what am I going to wear? I don't want to just wear what I was just mowing my yard,
Right.
I want to look like something else, So I came up with the idea of just wearing a shirt and a tie. Not that anyone's ever done that, of course. I mean, there's plenty of people that do it, but I figured, okay, it's one less thing that I have to worry about because, when you go and you gig, everyone in the band says, what are you wearing? What are you wearing? And I just got tired of that. I said, you know what? This is my outfit. No matter what band I'm playing with, I'm just going to wear a collared shirt and a tie. And that's how I dress. And I don't have to worry about it. It's something that's the last thing I have to worry about. But so I'm cranking it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mix. I'm more of a turn it down. I'm like, mix up the costume. I like costumer. It's fun. And also places and the situations I'm playing in, I'm working up a sweat.
Yeah.
So I want it to be cool. I'm not going to wear a long sleeve shirt. I'm probably not going to be buttoning anything up. No sweaters, unless I'm playing out in 55 degrees outside. Maybe then, and which is kind of my limit. Hand drums less than 55. Owie, no good.
Yeah.
So
True.
I say mix it up, costume it up.
Costume it up. I'm a little torn. I'm gonna crank it up for a different reason than Shawn. Not the I don't know what to wear or don't want to have to think about it kind of thing, which is a great point, by the way.
One less thing.
It's interesting, and I not even just performing, but even when I do a lot of social media stuff here, a lot of times it's rare that I think it's the first podcast where I'm not wearing a drums etc. hat. You know what I mean? Or he's got his on. He's got his right here.
I can
Yeah,
do it.
exactly.
I love my hat.
Oh yeah.
Well, with the headphones, it didn't really work out. So
You got to put the headphones over.
Yeah, come get you a hat. I mean, drums except that's perfect. I love
These are great hats.
They are good hats.
I'm a hair guy.
Yeah,
so
you're a hair guy.
I can't wear a hat. Why would I want to cover up this beautiful lock of hair that I have here?
I got to keep mine out of my face, because I got a bunch of it still here.
Yeah, but for the specific reason is, especially if you're trying to grow and gather a following and stuff, especially more in the rock and roll style. If you have more of an iconic look and you walk in the door, people know the rock stars in the room kind of thing. Not that anyone around here is big time in it. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where you picture, a long, flowy dress with a scarf or something. You're like, that's Stevie Nicks. That's her thing. She's not wearing the same exact, dress every night, but that's her thing. Slash has got his hat. There's something to the branding
Angus
of that.
Young.
Yep.
There's so many.
There's a lot of people that have that iconic thing. Not that it's necessary.
Sure.
But I think if you don't have the hair, like you see, okay, let's say Aerosmith, Steven Tyler with a buzz cut is not Steven Tyler,
Yeah.
But that while it's not something he's wearing, it's his image,
Yep.
So I'm gonna crank it up.
Yeah.
For consistency's sake, if you're trying to do that thing.
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah,
I hear
definitely.
that. That's good.
But yeah, I always think that you want to look a little different than the audience. Let's just say, and that's where the tie. No one wears a tie to a club, so when I would do that, I would go to the up to the bartenders too. They would know that I just played, and they're like, yeah, here, have a beer, on me, So.
Yeah, there's benefits
It works.
to it.
There's benefits to it. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
You just look
Yeah.
a little different. You look like, I'm not just sitting in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in the audience because I'm watching the other bands or whatever it is, but I'm recognizable, and it's a look, and it has its benefits.
Nice. All right, one more quick round here. Crank it up, turn it down using the butt end of drumsticks.
again, I think you are just coming after me wholeheartedly because I, in my left hand, I play butt end out exclusively.
Drum set playing.
Drum set playing. When I play drum set, and mostly I'm playing punk rock and rock and roll and stuff like that. You know, I'm not really playing jazz too much, but I play butt end out. I think you get a lot of a nice, consistent backbeat, and you get a lot of power out of it too. It's just that forward momentum in a way. It's a little top heavy.
Yeah.
It feels good to me. Rick is he plays the same way, Rick Hamilton, and years ago I saw him doing this, and I asked him why he did it, and he told me why. And he goes, you know what? I asked another drummer years ago about this, and he said, try it. You'll probably like it. And now I can't go back. So I can't go back. Now, if I'm at a practice pad and I'm playing traditional grip, I can play, regular, no problem. But I'm cranking it up. I love playing butt end out. That's how I play. And there's no going back for me. It's too late.
I hear that. For drum set, for me, I got the butt in my hand, and I got I'm playing traditional with that. Most of my stick drumming is on West African style drums, where they're cow skin, and most of the sticks I play with, this butt end on both sides.
Right.
And if I don't have those sticks, or if I'll turn it around and butt in that.
Nice.
But
That's a great point. Is there's a lot of those, playing Doon or whatever.
Exactly.
The sticks don't have tips.
Yeah.
Right.
Rock knockers are, drumsticks that are manufactured that way just for bashing and crashing, but I think they would work really good on those types of drums as well.
For sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, we can show you. I'm gonna crank it up, and here's why. Whenever I start a song, this happens. I play in church a lot, and like a lot of worship songs are I try to mix it up, but a lot of them are like this part, double up on the bridge, finish with the big chorus. You know what I mean? It's a lot of predictable stuff, a lot of similar songs. But a lot of the times it starts real soft, and I'll eventually come in with like a cross stick, and I'll start with a cross stick with the butt end out, and I'll just keep it there.
Yeah.
And then as I build up, I'm looking for a fat sound, and I don't bother flipping the stick.
And you get a better cross stick that way, too.
Get a better cross stick.
With the butt end out.
But I'll just leave it. I used to flip it around and, find it in between a beat, flip the stick or whatever. I've just been rolling with it. But
are you playing butt end out now?
No.
Okay.
No. Not unless it's that scenario.
Okay.
Where I'm going from real light and like rim click kind of feel to big drums, to big drums. So it has its place.
Cool.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. We're cranking a lot of stuff up, turning some things down. But yeah, we'll pop ahead. Let's talk drum industry news. All right, so drum industry news. We like to highlight things that the general public might not be super aware of, but we talk about this kind of stuff a lot at the shop, and it's just a fun way of just bringing up different types of things that are happening behind the scenes that people might not be aware of. This week, I want to talk about drum shops closing, which sounds like it's going to be a really depressing topic, but it's actually a really happy and like mutually beneficial situation. We recently inherited, absorbed the retail store of Hershey Percussion that was in New York. Dave Hershey ran that shop for 47 years.
Wow.
And absolutely incredible. Him and his wife ran the shop, and he also is still teaching and still teaches out of there, that same location. But they closed down the storefront. But just like real quick, thank you so much to the Hershey family and everyone. Like, it was such a smooth transition. We had seen that they were going to be having a sale because they would be closing the store. Reached out to them, talked with them, met them for the first time. I'd never been over there.
I had never been either.
Just got to know them really well throughout the process, and we were able to get some gear. And this shop is overloaded right now. We got
very much so.
We got so much stuff. We have more to put out still, but. This has happened a few times.
Yeah, this has happened twice since just the past couple of years.
Yeah.
What was the first?
The first one was Woodland Percussion. That was in
Avondale. So he was mostly a custom drum builder, but he also dabbled in the retail side of things. And then he realized that that's a tough business. And he just wanted to build drums for God's sakes. That's all he wanted to do. So he said, you know what? I'm not going to do the retail side. I'm just going to build custom drums. That's where his heart was.
Yeah.
That's what he loved.
That's the passion.
And we absorbed that inventory. And then again with Hershey Percussion, we found out that, hey, you know what? He's closing down shop. Let's reach out to him, see what we can do to kind of help, maybe facilitate that a little bit easier for him, and maybe absorb some of that inventory and that gear. And it helps him, it helps us. And it was nice to meet him finally, because I had always heard of Hershey Percussion, and I've been with Drums Etc. for 20 some years, very long time. And I know the drum shops around. I know the drum shops all over the United States. And his is one that, my gosh, it's right up the street. But something very confusing to me, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I'll just go ahead and say it. I thought Hershey Percussion was in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
I didn't know this until last week.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
in York. It blew my mind. And I thought to myself, self? If my last name, and I said this to a couple other guys, so I'm going to say it here at the podcast. If my name was Shawn York, and I wanted to make a drum shop, I probably wouldn't call it York Drum in Lancaster, PA.
I say again, names are important.
It would be too confusing being right next to York. I don't know.
Yeah,
To me, it was
yeah.
a little confusing. It confused me. That's not hard to do. It's not hard to confuse me, but I'm willing to admit that I had no idea that Hershey Percussion was in York all of these years. I had no idea.
Totally get it. I could
Yeah,
totally get
it
that.
blew my mind.
Yeah.
Finding out that you didn't live in Ephrata blew my mind. I thought you lived in Ephrata for
don't.
years.
I don't. I'm Ephrata adjacent. But when this sort of thing happens, everyone gets all... there's like a buzz when a shop closes or something. We ran into this. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, I'll say. When we moved to this location from New Holland Avenue, we had this big sale. I was a part of it. We were all part of it. And to get hype around it, we essentially started calling it a liquidation sale. But we weren't going out of business.
Right,
We were just
right.
trying to get inventory down to move to this new location. And every now and then we'll still get someone saying, "Oh, I thought you guys closed." And I'm like,
know.
"Man, we should not have done that."
Yeah, there's certain things, of course, what you just said is totally true, is the name is everything, and what you're calling it, you have to be real careful with that sort of thing.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
people will draw their own conclusions immediately. Liquidation says you're going out of business. That's it. Store closing, that didn't help either because technically the store was closing. The business wasn't closing, so we had a store closing sign because that's what you get when you go to these places to buy your
Right.
sale paraphernalia.
Stuff, yeah.
Store closing was definitely true, but folks thought that we were closing for real.
Yeah.
Legit. And when did you move here? I know we're going to get into
Year
that.
and a half ago.
Okay, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been here since he's
Okay.
been in town. An interesting thing that happens around that buzz when people hear about that is every drummer wants something, but no drummer wants everything. And that's where drum shops come in. You know what I mean? I'm
That is true.
like, you might want to get a good deal on that kit or this snare drum or those snare wires, whatever. But do you want to at one time buy 20 snare drums?
Right.
10 vintage drums, 8 drum sets, 100 cymbals,
And now-
drum head. You know what I mean? And all the little things along with it. That's tough.
And you could tell yourself as a drummer, you're like, well, I could always sell that stuff. Guess what? Selling drums is a lot harder than you realize because there's a lot of people doing it, and there's just because you have something doesn't mean somebody's going to buy it. So
Right.
you can tell yourself, oh well, now's the time. I could just sell this stuff. It doesn't matter. Well, when did you come up with that saying there? That's a good one. I'm like,
Literally
you just
on
blew
the fly.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Every drummer wants something.
Yeah,
But no drummer wants
I was like,
everything.
you must have been up
No,
late last
I-
night thinking of.
I got
Wow,
smudge it. It was
just
written on my
now.
hand. No, just now. Yeah, that's
He's
it.
in the flow.
Wonderful.
Sometimes, man.
You're
We
feeling
got good
it. You're
people.
feeling it, bro.
We got good energy in the room.
Yeah.
He's just
that
got
was
the perfect
good.
fill right there,
That's it. You just
I'm going to ask you what you said later on because that's.
I just said it again, so I didn't forget
Okay.
it. But I
That's
probably
great.
everyone listening I'd probably just changed it, and every time I say it, it's gonna be different.
Right.
But it is one of those interesting things. But it's one of those. It happens, you know what I mean, and and obviously we gave them time to run a big sale, try to get as much out of their inventory as possible, and then they called us, and
Yeah.
and on the fly, we weren't expecting it. The same, I showed up that morning talking with them that Wednesday morning. about what was going on, and then we dealt with the business side of things, and then it was, hey, could you come back today and do it? And I was like, yes, I'll do it. And then I was like, give me a couple hours, drove back here, grabbed you, grabbed some help, rented a truck across the street, made it happen.
It made it all happen, and I was leaving a little early that night as well.
I know, there's a lot of calculations
to make that video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to stay, because I love doing this type, this sort of thing. Like, it's just so much fun to me. So I'm like, I felt bad about having to leave, but
it's all good. It's all good.
We may do.
Ed, have you ever when your time here or anywhere else, a shop closes down, that you were like your go-to spot or anything like that?
I've not had that wonderful experience of
yeah, exactly. You get to go in and ogle at stuff, but it's a really weird thing, and thankfully the times that it's happened that we've been involved with it, it's always a choice, At least for me personally, with the couple times we've done it, it's always been, hey, we'll kind of want to retire out of this and focus on teaching.
That's what Rick did.
I want to play drums. Same, yeah.
And Dave was the same way. He's like, you know what? I just want to teach. That's what I want to do. And I think everyone gets to that crossroads in their life where you have to make a decision. You're like, am I really feeling the retail side of things? Business is changing. You have to always adapt. Whereas teaching, that doesn't really change all that much. The tools you use to teach certainly does, but the fundamentals will always be there. So that doesn't change. And it was neat to find out his history as well with being an orchestral player and working on timpani, and we have like that connection, which is kind of neat, and probably and could have had for a very long time had we been closer. But I think there was always that stigma back in the day where oh, you're another drum shop, you're our competition, and blah, why have that? It shouldn't be that. It really shouldn't be.
Yeah. I want to go on the record saying every drum shop out there, we want to get to know you. We want to be your friend. We literally have been talking about for a long time filming trips and us visiting shops.
Yeah.
Drums Etc. goes to Hershey Percussion and film it and go it and you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where, look, we're all part of the drumming community. Listen, with the internet and everything, there's so many different things equalizing the marketplace that I'm not worried about, a shop down the street or in another state or this or that. It's one of those things where, small independent drum shops, like we should use each other as a resource and be much more connected and not feel ashamed when you go into a store and you've been to another place to mention that you got it there.
Well, that was kind of the idea behind the 5-star drum shop program that was years ago. Whereas, you were basically bought into a club, and if you were a 5-star dealer, that would help the independent shops with pool as far as like being able to do big buy-ins that were just exclusive to the 5-star shops and things like that. So there has been a little bit of a network going on for a while, but still that stigma remains, like, oh, you're a drum shop, I'm not supposed to like you. And it's just like, no, I love visiting drum stores.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, since you came from Nashville, did you visit Forks?
Yes, many times.
I've been to Forks. That's a great shop.
Yeah.
I think they moved locations over the past 10 years since I've been there.
That's right, they did.
But
they did. But good shop. Yeah, Gary Fork. Knew him a little bit, and
excellent.
I bought a lot of shakers and bells, which I love, and you guys have a great selection of that here.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I know.
Yeah, we're big into it, man. I'm just leaning more into percussion lately, and it's one of those things where it kind of like, I talked about that with Rick on our History of Drums, Etc. Podcast we did with him. Just like you tend to lean into the stuff that you're interested in at different times, a little bit more and a little bit less. And by doing the drum circle things and meeting new people, it's like, hey, what do you need? What do you want? We were talking a little bit downstairs. It's like, what we have in the store is determined by what Shawn and I think you want. So if anyone comes in the store and they don't see something they want, tell us. We can, one, get it for you.
Right.
Or if you're in a time crunch, that's cool. But we'll get it in anyway, and then we'll have it for the next guy. And that's how we decide what's to stock, is what's selling and what you're telling us, the feedback. And we have no corporate entity just deciding what budget goes into what place. If everyone walks in the door and says that, we need djembes. We need djembes. Forget drum sets. We need djembes. We need to have 1,000 djembes. Then that'll happen.
Yeah.
But it's just, the communication barrier thing.
And you just have to ask. If someone comes in looking for something, you're like, I didn't see what I was looking for. What's that? And if they say something that we can get, I'll say, hey, you know what? I'll write up a ticket and see if I can get this in for you. I'll call you when it comes in. You come check it out.
Yeah. Don't have to pay for it. Just come
Yeah.
in and check it out. It's
Come
something.
check it out.
If it's this interesting to
Yep.
you, then likely it's something that
It's
someone else
great.
would like. So
it's
perfect.
awesome. I
Yeah,
would love
yeah.
that if I went to a place and I was looking for something in particular and I just wanted to see it, and a guy or a gal behind the counter said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll order it in. You come check it out. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on this, but it's just a good thing to do. Because it's great to see the instruments.
Yeah.
You could order shakers online all day long, but you going in and shaking them, it's like that's what tells you. It's like,
Right.
I need something that sounds like this and something. Like, go over there and shake them.
Yeah.
That's the best way to find out what you
Yep.
like or what your mind is telling you.
Totally agree.
Just
Yep.
go. There it is.
Yep.
It was a set of pro maracas all along I was looking for.
Yeah.
Here I thought I needed a studio shaker. Nope. It was the yellow Matador Pro Maracas.
Yep. That's the sound. That's the feel. Interacting with the object is
Yeah.
huge. That's why we have stuff.
Yeah.
Put the sticks in your hands, all that kinds of stuff. You got to feel it. Cymbals, everything.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, speaking of stuff you have to feel and hear and check out, we're going to jump into our next segment, Hall of Fame. All right, so Hall of Fame, we like to highlight specific pieces of gear that are game changers, have been around a while, or are new and we think are hot and think are just solving a problem that drummers have had for years, or there are no rules. We're making all this up as we go. But Hall of Fame, we induct specific products that we sell, but also you can buy, wherever, and that we think are game changers. So this week, thank you, Shawn. This week, the Hall of Fame inductee is the LP Ridge Rider cowbell. And there
There
are many
she is.
variations of it. This
Ladies
is
and
the rock
gentlemen.
cowbell.
Nice.
Yes. It's funny because we have a whole section of cowbells downstairs. How many would you say?
47.
Okay, there's 47 cowbells.
Wow.
But it feels like everyone always comes back to this one. This is the desired sound. If you're playing Grand Funk Railroad, you need this cowbell. We're an American band. You need this cowbell.
Yeah.
Don't get
That's
the
the
little
sound.
dinky one that goes ding, 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 for that song. No, you need this one. Also, what does this thing do here?
Yeah. The it's called a Ridge Rider because it's got a plastic ridge riveted on there.
Yeah.
And the nice part about that, a couple of things. One, that people don't talk about too much is that actually helps dampen the sound.
Yes,
So
it
a
does.
lot of cowbells are, you'd be surprised. You can even look at a large cowbell and you hit it, and it's got those high overtones that rings out a little bit longer, and people end up taping them or dampening them with different things. There's little things you can buy to stick in them, and
Yeah.
but a lot of times people duct tape, electrical tape, whatever it is to get
Right.
it to be a little bit more controlled.
Clunky.
That ridge does that a lot, and then it also keeps you from shredding up your sticks.
Sure does.
Yeah. I was going to say, you could hit that about 14 million times and it'll still be there.
Yeah, and we see these things come in used too, and they're beat to hell, and it's still intact.
Yeah.
It's still intact. It's still functioning and ready to go. And this thing has been produced for years and years and years. But like I said earlier, it's one of those cowbells where someone says, "Wow, we need a cowbell," and we're going through and we're testing out all the different versions and the styles and the makes and the models, and they always come back to this one.
LP Ridge Rock.
Yep.
Ridge Rider.
Ridge Rider Rock, yep.
Yeah, it's
Because
the
they
rock
also
one.
make a Ridge Rider non-rock, I believe, and it's a little wider.
Yeah, there's a standard one, and
Yeah.
then there's a lot of artist model cowbells. They like they've been playing
Ridge,
the Ridge
yeah.
Rider. So
Tommy Lee has the...
Tommy Lee's has that. What was the one we just got in? It's not a Bell Diablo, but it looks like that. It's the
Joey Jordison.
Joey Jordison's signature one. Which
Well,
is that discontinued?
It absolutely is discontinued.
Thank you, Hershey Percussion. That came straight from Hershey Percussion.
Right. We have the
Yeah.
Joey Jordison signature model Pearl cowbell
Yeah.
in stock. You can't... brand new in packaging. Not touched by human hands.
Oh boy, here we go. Not touching. The salesman comes out. That thing's got these horns riveted onto it. It looks metal, man. But let's talk about bells for a minute. What comes up in a lot of the stuff that you're playing? Is there a traditional? I know we played. I think we were playing a go-go's downstairs at the One Drum Circle, and
Right.
and obviously cowbells come in all variety of sizes and different colors, materials. What do you typically gravitate towards?
Well, the traditional West African style, which I've had a lot of study in, they have interesting handmade bells that are kind of like, two things, and there's they're open on the sides with just like two flat pieces that have been bent over and hammered and heated and whatnot, and they typically. In the traditional style, they will attach that to the drum, and one drummer would play, the dunumba, the big one, or the sangba in the middle, or the kinkini, the high one, but everybody's got a bell, and typically bigger bell, bigger drum, and they sort of tune them that way. And they, the bells can be heard by everybody. Sometimes drummers get a little distance apart, and, you can kind of lose track if you're not really there. But bell, dee, 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 those things just are the glue. So what bells do I play? I love bells, all kinds of bells. I mean, like downstairs you got Meinl, a go-go bell. It's a great little bell. Love that. I have some handmade little cone-shaped thing with a slit cut in them, so each side's tuned differently. Those are super fun. But I guess I probably play different. I have 5 different go-go bells myself, and that's probably my favorite to play.
Yeah, get a couple different tones in there, and you can manipulate it a little bit depending on where you're holding it. And...
Right. I think I watched a video. It was I don't know if it was Adam from Meinl put it up, or it was just a Meinl in general, because I follow him on social media. But they put up a couple of different cowbells and just played some rhythms on it, and I thought that was kind of neat because as a drum set player, which I am, you usually only have one cowbell. So, but there's different bells and things to play different tones all over your drum set, so you can do all that. Yeah. It's kind of neat. Like, wow, if you had just even a go-go bells on your drum set, the different, melodic, notes you can do, and just thinking outside the box as far as drum set playing goes. Everyone just thinks it's just playing rock and roll and all that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There's so much more you can do to it. Just adding those different effects and those different bells, and
it doesn't always have to be eighth notes on a big fat bell.
You don't have to think boom, boom ba boom boom ba boom ba.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of things that you can do with them, and where you can mount them really changes things too. I didn't realize until I started working here, after I played drums for a while, that it doesn't have to be right here on the bass drum. There's mounts for everything, off cymbal stands, off side clamps, off your hi-hat, off rims on your drums. You can get a bell mounted anywhere, and it really just changes it changes your perspective of the drums. My favorite thing to do is if I'm feeling like I'm in a rut a little bit with drumming, or I don't feel that motivated to sit down and play, switch something up. It can be as simple as moving a ride up and tilting it down a little bit, flattening something out, taking off a rack tom. I'm not going to play with a rack tom.
Right.
And see what that gives me. Just a different perspective, sitting behind the same instrument even sometimes, but just rearranged or moved around, and that can be the difference. You put a bell attached to something, all of a sudden your brain goes wild.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I think, early on, I think the cowbell was my first real add-on accessory to my set. And for years I had it on there, and then for years I didn't. And I just put the cowbell back on maybe a year ago onto my set, and it had been in my percussion bag for years. And then I thought, what, I'm going to break this thing out. And I just, me and my buddy wrote a new song involving the cowbell, which is kind of funny. And that's kind of the theme of the song is that driving cowbell beat. And had I not brought that cowbell back out, we wouldn't have come up with that, So it's kind of neat.
Saturday Night Live probably did a lot for cowbells.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my gosh.
More cowbell.
You know how many times I've heard that joke?
So many. Yeah.
Can't tell you. I recently got blindsided. I went to see a band at Mickey's Black Box. That was the first time I was over there. That place is crazy, by the way. Anyone in our area, Mickey's Black Box is nuts. They've got like the best equipment, the best lighting. Like it's wild over there. And I'm glad they're doing a lot more shows now, because there were only a few. It wasn't too many, and there were a couple ticketed events and stuff. But now they're starting to involve some more local musicians, which is rad. Love it, support it. But I went there and I saw the Corsair Blue Jazz Orchestra. My cousin plays saxophone in there, so it's like a big band. There are people dancing. It was wild. It was really cool. Yeah. But completely different than anything I play. You know what I mean? That's why I love going to a show like that. I'm like, this is nuts. But anyway, they must have made like 4 or 5 more cowbell jokes in their show between their director and the drummer.
And it probably cracked up the audience,
It
too,
did.
right? Everyone laughed.
And I sat there pouting.
You're like, it's not funny.
Not funny. I've heard it before. I'm not here to have fun.
Look, more cowbell.
Play some more music, please. No, but it comes up. But awesome. LP Ridge Rider cowbell. Huge. I mean, insanely popular item.
Check it
that
out.
has like, even the different versions of it is an iconic rock cowbell sound. So I think that's why it's sustained, and I think there's always going to be a Ridge Rider cowbell.
This, I think this thing is on wrong.
Header card.
Yeah, the header card's on wrong.
Someone probably took it off and mounted it.
I think so.
All right. But we'll fix it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. We got one more segment before we dive into Ed's story here. Quick question. All right. So quick question. Ed, as you can probably imagine, we get asked a lot of questions.
Right.
A lot of people walking in the door saying, "Hey, quick question for you." And usually when they lead with that, then there's this very, very long answer. There's a lot of follow-up questions.
Right.
It's not just one quick question. Oh, here's your answer. It's never a number. It's never true or false. It's always something that requires a little more digging. So we like to highlight different things on the show like that because we have more time to answer it. But I want to get your take and I want to get Shawn's take on this because I can guarantee that everyone in the room has been asked this question, not necessarily by a customer, but an aspiring drummer or a parent of an aspiring drummer. So here's the quick question. My kid or young relative of some kind is interested in drums and percussion. Where do I start?
Right.
And there's a lot of people that have strong feelings about lessons versus this versus that.
I say you start here. You've come to the right place, and then I'll segue from there. But that would be my quick answer, at least, is like,
come to the drum shop.
you come to the drum shop, and I would say, well, what's he interested in? Is he interested in drum set playing? Is he interested in? It's just about asking questions, really. Is he interested in hand drum percussion? Is he listening to pop music? Is he inspiring to be in the school band, marching band? Did he see a movie that involved music or drumming in some way?
Yeah.
So it's just finding out where, the youngsters or, it doesn't even have to be a kid.
Yeah.
It could be anybody. The student or the future drummer, what inspired them and where they see themselves going. I wanted to be a punk rock drummer and, wanted to play in a rock and roll band. So that's what started it for me. And we all have our different starts and just asking questions and figuring out, where their, passion is.
Yeah, I'm on a similar kind of track. I'm like, well, do you see yourself playing with hands? Because I do a lot with hand drumming and the whole drum circle in West Africa, and the hand drums are really key. So do you see yourself playing drums with your hands or with sticks? So that gives you a big...
It's a good question.
We go in here, we go in here. Stick drummers can whack their congas over here and their bongos or whatever they got. And, djembe players or conga players can also, play stick drums, of course, but... So that's my first question: is which one do you want to do? But I think you're on the right track. What got his attention? Is it because is there a band he likes?
Yeah.
Did he see it in the movie?
Because
did he see a drum circle?
You kind of want to nurture that. You don't want someone. Say a little. I'll just say a young kid comes in. He saw, let's say he's into Green Day. He saw Green Day, and you don't want to say, well, no, you don't want to start there. You have to start on the snare drum, like. That's you want to learn your fundamentals, but you also want to nurture that enthusiasm. So you get there, but you sometimes you do have to teach for the student as well. It's like that's what brought him to wanting to play. Let's nurture that. Let's go there.
Yeah, it's often true that if you're having fun, you're doing it right. So, go with that.
Yep.
And then you can figure out, okay, this tradition or that style, and I want to make sure I want to really get that language together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important. I think as soon as I love when parents come to us, even if we get talking to them, I've learned, this is something I've learned over the years, especially if a parent comes in talking about a kid starting out. Before we get too far in the conversation, I ask them the age. Because you can get so deep in the conversation that we're like, yeah, let's pick this out and do this and do that. And then I say, oh, wait, how old are they? And they're like 2. And
3.
I'm like, oh, geez.
Like,
I'm like, that's a very different conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Like at a young age, it's very much more like just putting things in front of them, encouraging them to, put music on and jam with them or whatever it might be.
Look at here's the video. Look, he's playing his uncle's drums, and
he's like, look,
bashing.
He's really good. He can really keep a beat. And it's just like chaos. And you're like,
Yeah, but I would say just keep encouraging him to do that.
Yep.
But a little too young for private lessons. You know?
That's a different thing.
Little too young for that.
And the first impression, the first advice that you get or give is super important. I know that on my personal drum journey, I was interested in drums and in playing drums in like the school band, right? So I go to the triad or whatever. You can play drums or trumpet. I said, yeah, I want drums. I went to one lesson and quit. And it's interesting because I didn't go to a private lesson. I went to a school lesson, and over half the lesson, like most of the lesson, I should say this, I was playing on a little bell kit and learning the notes and doing that. And I was like, in my mind, I wanted to play the drums, and I was not playing the drums.
Right.
And I dropped it. And I didn't pick it back up until like high school. So what's that, like 3rd grade to 9th or 10th grade?
That's a big loss.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wonder how long I would have stayed with it. And, if it was just, here's the drum, here's the snare drum practice pad or whatever, Yeah. But I just think that initial, how you foster that initial interest is very, very important. And for parents that are looking to do that, go to your local drum shop.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy for us to spot what they're interested in and what's going to help and what's going to hurt. In addition, when we sign up students with private drum lessons, the bare minimum that you need is a practice pad and a pair of sticks. But if you want to play, if you're, kid or whoever, or you want to play the drums and you're smacking just a slab of rubber, I mean, if that was me when I was a kid, my motivation.
Me too. Now I love playing on my practice pad now.
Yeah,
but
same.
as a kid, no, it's not going to work.
It's tough. I needed a drum to hit.
I needed the bass drum to hit. I started right away into drum set playing immediately. I didn't start off on a snare or practice pad. It was like I bought a drum set because I wanted to play drum set.
Yep. And it's a huge game of self-awareness. But when you have a kid, or especially someone that's might not be comfortable talking about what they're really interested in front of a teacher, in front of a relative, or in front of the guy at the shop or whatever. Like, you just need to, okay, this person is interested in the drums. They're close to me. I'm going to really find out what they're interested in doing, and then go from there is a really important thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Asking questions. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then guiding them, that way.
Right. But there's no harm that can be done with just having drums around.
Oh.
There's no, just having them around. And I know a lot of parents that want their kids to be musicians.
And that's where
specifically don't push it, but just have the instruments around and then.
Yep. That's where, having all the hand percussion and the shakers and the bells downstairs is so very important, because it gets everyone involved. You don't have to be a drum set player, to be a drummer or to be a percussionist. It's the shakers. It's getting everyone playing and involved and, and learning.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really, like you said, you don't have to be a drummer to start. And I know that sounds really counterintuitive or kind of like no duh, because you're starting, but it's one of those things where the barrier to entry as far as drums versus a lot of other, as far as violins or whatever, like learning the cello versus learning how to play a shaker to start out. The barrier to entry is so low that it's very easy with drums and percussion to find out if you have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And then you just, then you go from there. Oh yeah. Shawn
Fun.
Bell.
Good point.
Good point. That was the first good point. How long are we into this? That was the first good point.
I didn't say it was the first good point. It was just a good point, and I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to get bell happy over here.
Bell happy. Got a little bell happy.
It should be a cowbell, actually.
It should be. Yeah,
that's a good idea. Maybe I'll mount a cowbell over here, and when you make a good point, clunk, clunk, clunk,
clunk, clunk, clunk.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah, this is a podcast, and we have so many noisemakers, but we don't really involve any of it in the show. So that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. All right, so quick before we hop into the between the plies section here, where we talk with Ed. I do want to plug. We have a Discord channel that we're trying to get launched. Basically, it's just like an online chat community where you can reach us, give us ideas for the show, ideas for segments, different things like that, so you don't have to rely on my creativity. But also, feel free to leave a comment. You know, the more you interact with us, the quicker we become a closer community. We're not here just trying to sell you stuff. We're literally here to talk drums, which is what we love. And if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to message us wherever you're seeing this, or reach out. It's me, Shawn, and Goody, 3 of us. That's it. We run the shop. Real easy to get to. Real easy. We're here to help you guys. But yeah, let's hop into Between the Plies. All right, so we are back with Between the Plies. This is where we dig in and talk about our guest and your journey. I think so many drummers, even though we all have our own path, can learn from each other's journeys and different things like that. It's just really good to talk and to talk about what we've been through and just get that out there into the world. And a lot of people can benefit and appreciate that. So yeah, we talked a little bit about it. You did start playing your dad's drums to start out.
Yeah, he was not a professional musician. He was an advertising guy, had a company, and but he played piano by ear fairly well, and he loved music. He had big stereo for that age, and just one day there's a set of drums. Yeah. I never gave a thought to anything like that until there it was.
So you said it was a Slingerland?
It was a Slingerland set.
Can I ask what finish it was?
I believe it was sort of silvery looking.
Nice.
I mean, it's been a long time, but
is this I'm not going to date you here, but was this the 60s?
Let's see. Well, you can date me. I don't mind. I'm actually happy to be as healthy and going like I am at this age, but brother. I was born in 53, so I was 12, so 65.
Nice. Wow. That's my favorite era of drums. I'm
really
like the 60s. I own 2 drum sets from the 60s. One is a Slingerland, one is a Lee.
Yeah.
I love that era of drums. That's why I was curious about the drums itself. I have a Slingerland, and that's so cool that you got
hi-hat, snare, 2 toms, floor tom, a ride, and a crash. So, nice little set.
I wonder where that drum set is now.
Oh, I do too. It went to the attic for a while, and then things kind of like started disappearing. I don't know, people swiped stuff, or one of my other brothers, or who knows.
Yeah. It's somewhere.
Yeah,
it's somewhere.
It moved away. But I had a couple of years to play with that, and as I mentioned, particularly Stevie Wonder's records kind of caught me, and a guy named Trini Lopez, who my father liked, who was a little more Latin kind of stuff, and kind of got me into like bell pattern stuff. So I did that for a while, and then his set went away, and my drumming went away. I didn't really connect that well with my parents and tell them what I was doing. I just played when they left.
Yeah.
Because I figured, they'd want to hear me back. I was a little shy too, It's like it didn't start out great,
Yeah. Yeah, but that was your first taste of it.
Right, but it got me really sensitized to rhythm. So from then, for my whole life now, I'm hearing the drums. I'm listening to the drums. I go to a concert. I'm watching the drummer. Just that's what got me. And that's how I started realizing. Okay, they're doing this. Stuff like that. And you slowly figured it out. I never actually had a lesson. And then when I was, I guess, maybe 31, 32, I decided I need to play some drums some more. So I bought a used set up at my house, knew a keyboard player, knew a singer, and her husband who's a guitar player, and we just jammed. I called us Red Meat and the Song Butchers.
Wow.
Just as kind of a joke,
That's a great name.
I love these band names.
I love band names.
They keep coming up with our guests. This is great. This is fantastic.
That's good.
Red Meat and the Song Butchers. Yeah, so we had a lot of laughs over it, and we just played at my house. Never, And after we'd played maybe 10 or 12 times, I said maybe we ought to put like a set together and go play out somewhere. I don't know. The band just kind of disappeared. They were, no, these were the wrong people for that. They were happy to come and bash around at my house, but they're like, no, we're not doing that. So that kind of went away, and then I did a lot of theater in my life earlier, and I started working on putting together a one-man show. I did the whole performance poetry thing. I was in Chicago for 5 years, and performance poetry was kind of born there, which is where you get 3 minutes to get up, no props, no instruments, but 3 minutes of what do you got to say.
Wow.
And when people are, some people are astonishingly good at it, can like blow you away. So I got to see some of that. And after I had, probably 30, 40 different poems that I would perform, I realized, okay, I need to put together a one-man show, and which I did. It was called Son of White Man, The Naked Truth.
Wow.
Another
That's
compelling
awesome.
title.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
into
great.
titles,
That's-
I'm into names.
Yeah.
And so I did. There was a fringe theater festival circuit that across Canada. The Canadians figured out how to do this thing where they would have a 10-day festival in one side of the country, and then they'd have every other week skipping across the country.
Yeah.
So probably 30 different companies, and me and a woman, I did my one-man show, went across Canada one summer. And in 94, I saw these three men from Ghana playing djembes, just kind of jamming there on the street.
Okay.
And it happened to be in Victoria, British Columbia. And these guys are right there. We were in the harbor. I heard the harbor was beautiful. I went down and had a look. Well, here's Barbara Streisand's giant yacht, helicopter on the back, couple of tough guys up, security on the thing. But it was
Barbara's not even in there.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So I saw these guys playing. I sat and watched them for an hour, and I'd never seen a djembe or heard anything like this. But I was like, "This is my thing right there. There it is." So they got finished, and I went and tried to talk to him. One of the guys' name was Hunter, and he had a little bit of English, and he told me what the drum was, and I said, "Man, where do I get that?" And he said, "I brought one with me that my friend made to help me finance my trip." And I said, "Well, bring it tomorrow and I'll buy it." So I just bought this djembe, and it wasn't brilliant, but it was pretty good. It's a good starter djembe, and I took it home. I'm like, "Where's anybody playing this? What is this?" And they said, "Well, men's group are doing some stuff, and then there's this drum circle over at this woman's house. They did it in a theater, and now they've been doing it in her house." So I went to that. And there were people just jamming, and people were dancing, and it was just really happy and kind of intense. And everybody's just kind of blibbity blobbity blibbity blobbity. Most people didn't have any training or any language, but still they were having a great time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. Everybody starts somewhere, and so finally one night I'm like, okay, I'm realized, okay, we're playing this rhythm. It's this basic, Middle Eastern kind of thing that you hear in lots of music, right? So then next thing you know, 4 or 5 of us are doing it, and we're just thinking, this is the best thing that ever happened in the world. Oonga, 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 oonga.
Like a calypso kind of.
Exactly, yeah. And a couple of women who were really lovely were dancing intensely and joyfully. So that really put a hook in me. And so I started thinking, okay, what are some more rhythms, some more patterns? Yeah. And I felt really lucky. I was able to go home and actually remember it. Usually you're there in the moment, it goes by. I don't know what I just did.
Yeah.
So I remembered a pattern finally, and then I realized what else is out there. And I looked around, and then I spotted, there's West African traditions where apparently they've literally been at it for centuries, like for hundreds of years. Some kind of percussive thing is happening, and now it's developed to it's really profound. One of the lead guys of the world, Mamadi Keita, I think he said there were something like 300 rhythms that you could know from various subcultures of the Malinke group. And he said you kind of have to be born into it to really get a lot of those. But guys like me, I know about 20, and I know of 50 or 60, and guys like this guy, Mamadi Keita, he's produced DVDs, and he started with VHS, and there's books, and he's actually put schools around the world so you can kind of learn that style. It's out of Guinea, West Africa. So anyway, then I started realizing, okay, there's a West African thing. And then luckily for me in Nashville, there was a woman who liked African dance, and she had a thing she called Global Education Center. So she would bring people in. And she had a couple of young men she'd taken in, a couple of African-American lads, and they were like naturals, and they played really well. So she was doing everything she could to nurture them. And she had guys like Mamadi Keita and Les Percussions de Guinée, which was a troupe that came in, and other, in that area, famous playing since they were kids kind of drummers. So I went and always did their classes and realized, okay, there's a kind of a real language that you have, and there's all these rhythms where you can, there's 2 or 3 djembes playing patterns, ba da ba bo da ba da ba unkoro ga duru da duru da duru da duru da, and those are accompaniments that can be played and mixed with on top of doom da doom doom da, or ding ding dong ding ding dong, and they play and the high one's going beep 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 beep. So you get basically 3 stick drums, all at different pitches, low, medium, and high, each with bells. So those are 6 rhythmic patterns that are happening. And then you got 2 or 3 djembes with 3 more patterns. And then the djembe players typically, and sometimes the dunduns, will take turns soloing, which adds a lot of fun. And of course, in those traditions, a lot of what it's about is marking the steps and inspiring dancers to do stuff. So
it's an incredible thing, and it's one of those times where your eyes open about it. And even just talking with you and with Rich, and I know I talked to Ken Meyer, who did our first one, about it a little bit, and he gave me some brief background on some stuff. I didn't realize what it was all about. Like, from our perspective, being drum set players, we're like, like drum circles and like hand drum players, they basically break down what we do. Like, what we do with our right foot is like a bass drum, and like one guy plays that, and one guy plays what we're playing on the hi-hats, but it's like a rhythmic thing over here, and one guy plays. It's not as simple as we take our 4 limbs and make it simple, and 4 people play simple things. It's really about crafting this whole ecosystem of rhythms that work well together.
Well, what you just did there was a great demonstration where you just kind of mouthed the different rhythms that all of the instruments would be playing to create one, rhythmic force. And I'm like, the way you did that was so cool. That was so neat. I'm like, you're like, ding, 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 ding. And you're playing this over here. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah, it can make for some deep magic.
Yeah,
now, drum circles, for a lot of people, what drum circles are, they're a way to kind of go out into the world and help people have some kind of beginning as a musical performing person. Just to be able to get into the groove and be okay. Because it's scary for people to get up.
It sure is, but the thing about it that no one talks about too is that rush of adrenaline and whatever is released when you're playing. Yeah. And that euphoric state that you're in when you're in the zone and you're playing. Drummers, or not drummers, but runners get it, when you have that, like...
a flow state, you might call it.
You feel so good. And we don't talk about that enough. And that's where... I think people are craving something like that, and they don't realize it. They want to play music, and because that's in them. It's in them, and it's ready to come out. And once it does, they fall in love with. I don't care what you play, just play an instrument. Drums are my favorite, but if you want to start, go to a drum circle, get started there, because it is a natural high that everyone is chasing, that everyone wants. And we don't talk about it enough. It's just such a good feeling when you're in the zone playing. Right.
So drum circles can be, done with really all beginners. And a good drum circle facilitator kind of helps people figure out ways just to do something, to get some kind of groove going. And sometimes it's not musically, that brilliant. But it is brilliant that people are getting a beginning, getting a start. Many drum circles, like the one I'm going to do here, anybody at any level, all are welcome. And everybody can add some kind of pattern of something that adds to the whole. People can be really a beginner and be tentative and play softly and have a beginning, and that's okay. Others come out and like, I got some stuff for you here, and they'll throw down, and it can be great. Conversations get happening with each other, and so drum circles can be not musically great, or they can produce. Sometimes you get into a flow state and your a thing is going and you're like, where did that pattern come from? That little thing I did there, it's just like, it just magically comes in somehow. You get in the groove, you get creative, things come in, and everything takes practice and tons of it if you want to get really great. But drum circles are a great way. You can do something. You can begin. And you can develop.
And my misconception I always found over the years with drum circles were just a bunch of guys playing drums aimlessly, just banging on drums, And it's great when there's someone like you there to kind of, facilitate, like just you play this rhythm, and kind of give people direction to kind of build upon that.
Right.
You know, not just drum. I mean, that's fine, but you know, you
Yeah.
need some kind of direction, and you want it to be some type of learning experience as well. You know, you want to learn. You don't just want to put your head down and just everyone's just making noise.
Right. The drum circles, you know, it's a pretty big, wide subject, and the subject of drum circle facilitation is a really interesting thing. There's several people who've done a lot to help people understand or kind of develop tools, language, ways of facilitating a drum circle. And I'm happy to give a plug to Arthur Hull. He's a guy in his 70s now out in California, and he started getting the idea about what can we do. He actually, one of the stories that come in his book, he has a couple of books, and I totally recommend them. One of the stories in the book was he was at a rainbow gathering, which are kind of these freedom fest. They go to national park land and just do a thing, and they don't tell the park rangers. And sometimes it's gotten big and out of control. But anyway, they do it on the 4th of July. There's typically a great big drum circle, and so Arthur tells the story of, I went to the great big drum circle, and a lot of people just going like mad, and some of them get kind of disconnected. They're still having their experience, and it's kind of loud and crazy. And then he goes back to his camp, and on the way back he hears this drumming that's like, this is really something. Well, it turns out it was a group of women, and they were more frame drums, shakers, and they were playing softer. And he just kind of crept up and looked at them, and they looked at him, and he's like, I'm okay. What he realized was that they're really listening to each other, and they're really playing together rather than like the other circle. A lot of people were just gaggity, 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 gaggity. So those drum circles can be where you can really listen to each other and create really magical, cool stuff. Or you can be, what they call a thunder drummer, and you're just blabbity, blabbity, blabbity,
Yeah.
which can be fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but both are cool.
Yeah.
But it's great to know that there's different versions of it out there, and I think it's cool to have a facilitator, especially if there's a lot of beginners. It's
Right.
cool, if
Right.
there's guys that are more advanced and more confident. Yeah, you can kind of feed off of each other. You maybe not need somebody telling everyone what to play.
Right.
But when you're doing beginner drum circles, yeah, you need somebody to facilitate that and kind of guide everybody.
Yeah. Arthur's helped a lot. Literally thousands of people around the world have a way of working with groups. And you can there's this thing where you can facilitate from the side, they say, where nobody kind of realizes it, but you're the guy who, I either got a foot trigger or a bell on my foot, and I'm playing something loud and clear and steady. So people got something to hang on to. So oftentimes the drum circles, the ones with the most skill, are playing simple, steady, and loud, where everybody has something to hang on to.
Yeah. So you picked up. Obviously, we went off into drum circle land, but let's talk about your time in Nashville. So, I imagine you've already integrated yourself within the community. You've had a couple gatherings. You've reached out to all these musical people. I see on all the pages reaching out to people saying, "Hey, what's up?"
Right.
And so I imagine in Nashville it was the same idea, right? Like you developed that skill of just networking with so many people.
Right. I'm somewhat of a natural teacher, and I did a lot of work in acting and performance poetry and stuff. So I'm a guy with a mouth and not afraid to use it.
No, it's great. Yeah.
So as I started doing drum circles and having so much fun every Tuesday night at Leith's house on Essex, that was the famous drum circle that happened for about 6 years. And then I started studying the West African style, and I realized that this guy Mamadi had a book and he had some stuff. So I started well, who wants to learn some of this? And few people joined in, so that kind of created a group where we knew some traditional grooves. And time came where I said, man, I love drums. That's the name of my band, the Love Drums. That's my company, the Love Drums.
Nice.
So I have the lovedrums.com.org.us, and I have I've got a CD. That's if you can see that's kind of my logo there. And I have an album on all the platforms, and that that looks like that.
That's neat. That's where the name came
Check
from.
it out.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
It's simple.
It's all about branding, baby.
Yeah. So
That's
the
it.
Love Drums was begun. There was a group, and I've had maybe 40 different people all told play in the group, and some of them have been extremely skilled and really good, and others are students who are kind of coming on. But I have a couple dozen things that are in my repertoire. And that's also typically what I teach at University School in Nashville, which had elementary, middle, and high. I taught, I don't know, maybe 3,000 classes in the middle school.
Yeah.
And I had performing groups that did stuff, and people were astonished what they did. We'd go to the school assembly and play stuff, and I'd get a couple of ringer dancer people to say, get up and start a conga line, that thing where you got a hand on the shoulder, ding, 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 ding. And we'd literally have had 200 students jamming around the thing, and I've had
great.
teachers come up after going, oh my gosh, I've never seen such as that, So it can get really exciting to learn some grooves that, and for me, it's, I hear a pattern, it makes you feel good, makes you feel light, makes you want to dance, makes you bump, makes you tap. Those are the things I do. I just remember those and pick out rhythms that I like. So I've built up a couple dozen that I think of as my primary repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've established. I didn't realize you had that much impact as far as like teaching, from the teaching side of things as well. That's awesome.
Right. So I also I wanted to have a community drum and dance event, so I created a thing called the Love Drums Community Drum and Dance Whiz Bang. Whiz Bang was a type of firework when I was a child that went.
Yeah.
It was a whiz bang.
That sounds awesome.
That's a great,
so
name.
I did it actually 99 times, so somehow it didn't quite get to 100. 100 is waiting to happen somewhere, sometime. And I got some people in Nashville like, come on, man, when's 100? When are we going to put this together?
Yeah.
Like, well, so I can get the band kind of back to full speed. But anyway, we did 99 events, and it was typically a 3-hour event. The Love Drums would play a set about 45 minutes. We'd have a little break. Sometimes we'd have a singer or somebody could play a balafone, a jill, which are wooden xylophone type deals. Or a belly dancer might come up and do a thing with a doumbek player. And then we'd have an open drum circle where everybody got to play with the Love Drums, and those would totally rock. And I did things like I did a belly dance night. There was a time where belly dance was huge in Nashville, and there were like 10 different troops. Wow. Every one of them came and did a couple of numbers. Awesome. We did another event where we had everybody bring your bowls, your bells, like singing bowls and all that, and we must have had 100 different ones. So we kind of orchestrated about a 15-minute ringy-dingy woo-woo-woo thing that was
that's a cool
crazy.
idea.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That was crazy cool.
Bring your own.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of instrumentation, and especially when you get into like the meditative side of things, where you only see those, there's only one in the room, or there's only one. To have a community of people bring those sort of instruments together is really cool.
Right. If you go to my YouTube channel, The Love Drums has a channel, and look on there for the video that's Whiz Bang number 50, part 3, and you will see a parade of 150 people around this. It's actually a Unitarian Universalist church that had this incredible stone building and room that we got to play in. Wow. So yeah, we got about 200 people marching around, and I'm leading with a bell.
Yeah.
Doing a.
And everyone's digging it, and everyone's loving it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone's involved.
Yeah. Everyone's participating.
Right.
That's great.
We had a guy playing a timbale. We had people playing doon-doons, people playing djembes, doumbeks, lots of shakers.
Any marching snare drummers? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the one guy was marching, but I think it was a timbale, not a snare. But I love the Brazilian stuff too. I haven't gotten super into that, but give me a good samba parade. There's a local group, Music for Everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, and Matt Woodson. Do y'all know him?
Yeah,
y'all should know him. He's he led a little samba kind of a parade with about 12 kids that he had taught a basic group. Diggy 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 doom. Diggy 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 doom, with snares doing a thing, and it was super cool. And I just went with a tambourine and tagged along. But samba, Brazilian stuff is cool too. But
absolutely.
I haven't gone super deep into that yet. But.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot from the drum set point of view, which is my point of view,
right?
My initial point of view for everything, for the percussion side of things is working at the shop. Which I recommended. I highly recommend working at a drum shop. You want to learn because you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you do. But there's so much, in my mind. I was like, here's the drum set stuff and cymbals and stands and stuff. And then over there, it's like that's all the percussion stuff, and that's one group. But then you start to learn which regions they come from, and which patterns and which rhythms, and it's really worldwide percussion that is all. It's not all just thrown over there because That's something that makes a sound effect. You know what I mean? There's so much to it, and there's so much thought behind the construction of the instruments and different things like that that really affect the tonalities that you need for certain types of music. It's a big world.
And you saying that you led the charge with the tambourine, talk about, like, I think an underrated instrument. Like, everyone thinks a tambourine is like, oh, it's a tambourine. Like, what you can do with a tambourine if you're skilled.
Yeah.
Like, the sounds you can pull out of it, and there's such an underrated instrument. Tambourine.
They are, and now, of course, and I see you got a bunch of them downstairs. The tambourine sticks, because you can hit it against a drumstick. It's lighter weight. You can, and I have one that I've rigged up with a foot trigger that I'm hitting with a bass drum pedal. So yeah, those are super fun. So one more thing, so kind of the full circle. So I start with the drum set, and then I steer off into more sort of African drum circle-y stuff. And then 2 months ago, a guy rides his bike, an e-bike, slick-looking e-bike in front of my house. I love e-bikes. Yeah. And so I flagged him, and I said, man, let me check your bike out. Well, it turns out he was a bass player. He's just turning 50. He'd played in a cover band a good long time in his 20s and 30s. Yeah. And so now he's having his 50th birthday party, 70s theme, and he heard I was a drummer. He said, do you play drum set? And I said, well, sort of. I know basic. I can play it basic. And he said, well, would you come in? So anyway, I just played for a guy's 50th birthday party, and we did 5 songs. Like We Got the Beat and The Joker and some 70s numbers like that.
That's
so
awesome.
We rehearsed 3 times, and I listened to those things a lot, to see if I could figure out, okay, how are they beginning, how are they ending, what are the fills like?
You want to be prepared.
Like, is this guy drunk? He's hitting the crash at the oddest times. So,
It's amazing, right?
You
start thinking
those
of
weird
things like that, because I try to play, if I'm doing a cover song, I try to play it like they're playing it, but I always remember I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I have to put my own spin on it, and you have to do that. So it's like, okay, he's playing it over here. It's a little funky, but I'm going to do it like this. So.
Yeah. The Joker, the Steve Miller song, it's, most of what I play is upbeat. So, play that slow. I'm like, Ed, don't quit speeding it. Ed, you're speeding it up. Okay, sorry, I'm speeding it up. So I finally figured out how to not speed it up. But I counted the drummer hit the crash 14 times before the first chorus came up. And it's like, wow, okay, he's got to be drunk, or I don't understand. I don't understand his pattern, but I'd love to hear from him. Yeah. What, how's it coming?
I know.
You know what?
It's all influences of what you're used to.
Yeah.
That guy, they didn't really think too much. I think right now we overthink things too much. And probably then they're just kind of like, all right, let's roll. When he's just in the studio, probably a second take.
Yeah.
Just never play it the same twice.
Yep, exactly.
That's all you got to remember.
Right.
That's all you got to remember. But speaking, you played at this guy's house. I checked out your house and your drum room and collection and everything. Let's talk about your collection of gear, because it's not just drums. Shawn, you got to come over and see.
Yeah, come.
Now, I mean, so you moved all of this stuff up from Nashville. I mean,
I was lucky enough.
Probably 2 truckloads
full of drums
stuff, right?
Yeah. It took a lot to move. Yeah, I had a pretty big place down in Nashville. I had kind of a community house. I rented rooms. I Airbnb'd for a couple of years. So I had a pretty big space, and there were, people were living in my barn and whatnot. So we did have quite a lot to move. I was lucky enough to be teaching and performing at a thing called Drum and Splash at a community a few hours away from here. And while I was there, on the 4th of July, I walked to see my drum vendor buddy. He's a big, burly, engineer kind of guy, makes drums. And I feel this itch. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, is that a tick? And he's going, yeah, man, you got a tick. So he pulls up a little bitty pair of pliers, and he's going to get the tick. Well, right over here is this darling woman in a black bikini at the jewelry vendor. And, well, it turns out she'd been in healthcare for 25 years. So she came over and stopped us, and let me handle that for you. So she took me to her tent and fixed me up. And well, we fell madly in love.
Nice.
It was fantastic, yeah. Well, she moved to Nashville, and we lived there for 8 years, and now we're back here. Our grandchildren, her daughter are here, so that's how I wound up in Lancaster.
Okay.
And happy to be here. But I brought a lot of gear. So my drum room, I do have 4 really great djembes, all African hardwood, 1 with cow skin and 3 with goat. Everybody, a lot of people typically like to experiment with different skins. Mostly they're goat, but but it's fun to play with calf too. It's thicker, a little harder, but and then I have a great set of doon-doons. And the way I like to do doon-doons is what they would call ballet style, where you have 3 strapped together. And my big one is this diameter and that tall. And I have it that and the other 2 with a ratchet strapped together, but hung on a 2-wheel dolly that I've made the bottom plate bigger so I can rock it back and wheel it.
Move it, yeah.
I can move it. And it's got 2 bells. One of them looks a lot like that one there. I'm going to go home and look at it. Is this one of those? Because it's that size. And so I've got a couple of bells, a couple of wood blocks on it, and a bunch of strung a bunch of lights on it. So I got a set of doon-doons. I got a talking drum. Remo has one of their best made sort of African recreations is their big talking drum. So I got that talking drum and a Meinl Doombeck, just like you got downstairs. Those things are fantastic little drums.
Absolutely.
Right. I got a couple of congas. I got a cajon. And there's a thing called a crin, a log drum, and they're typically this, from this big to maybe this big. And what they do is they cut a slat out about like so, and another one a little smaller. So you have 2 keys, and they dig it all out in there. So dee-dee-da-da, dee-dee-da-da. And there's interesting stuff that you can do. In fact, I love the idea. You guys, stick drummers, come over and let's have us a jam on my crin, K-R-N, crin. So I've made 6. I'm trying to figure out how to make them. It's not that easy to figure out and make them sound brilliant like my African ones.
Right.
So I got 6 crins and a wall full of bells. The Zydeco tie. Have you seen that? Those are wacky. I got a Zydeco tie. So and I got a couple of an old set of Macintosh speakers that were in their day. They were $9,000. There's columns of 20 tweeters per side. So it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, my stepfather bought these long ago. He was kind of eccentric, and I inherited them. So I got a crazy big stereo there, and me and GarageBand and a MacBook.
Yeah, that's simple.
And SM57 and SM81 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
the little condenser and the dynamic mic, you're good to go.
So I'm working on another album, but it's my drum room. It's got exposed wooden beams and pictures of drummers on the wall. And
masks, everything. The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where every drummer needs space for their stuff, and
sure do.
we all settle into the room a little bit,
kind of
feel
fun
it out, and
seeing guys' drum room. I have a drum room. We all have it, so it's so neat to see everyone's like take on their space.
That's another idea. I was saying we should go to drum shops. We should go to check out everyone's drum rooms.
That's
let me
cool.
see your
Drums, etc.
That's a great
Check
idea.
out this drum room, and you go in and you talk about what they have, their collection, where they got everything.
The podcast writes itself.
That's it. It'll be the whole show.
Gosh, we could just go to your house and you would just talk about the different instruments. And just like
bring it
content.
That's
all
it.
there.
That'd be great. Cool. So we talked about that, but also we meaning me recently started reheading djembes the past year or so. I've done probably 10, probably up to 10 at this point.
Cool.
Which is not every day. Just not every day.
Say a dozen.
A dozen. If I say a dozen, I have to say a baker's dozen.
Say a baker's dozen.
Baker's dozen or so.
Just FYI, I've done over 100, so I have a little knowledge too, and we should commiserate on this.
That's why I brought it up, because I know you've done it for a while, and we talked about it a little bit at the drum circle, and we were like, we'll talk later. But it's one of those things where we've, it's obviously I'm new to the game of doing it. I have a friend who's from South Africa originally, and so he has some knowledge of it, and he taught me how to do it, and the knots and this and that. But,
you're quite good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit more confident now, but it's one of those things where it's practice makes perfect, and you don't have a lot of practice. But anyway, we do that here, and I'm sourcing different heads from different places, and you want a little thicker or thinner, what size do you need, how much overlap,
Is Ed the guy that you
he's the guy.
Taught you the different styles of heads and animals and everything?
Yeah.
Because you had told me that information, but go ahead.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about it, and you were saying, and we talked, Ariel was here at the drum circle, and we were talking a little bit about, afterwards I talked to her, and she's like, I just have goat skin, some pretty thin goat skin, and she's like, well, if you get some calf skin, I'm like, all right, sounds good. So I was talking with my vendors, I'm going to get some calf skin pre-cut in, and different things. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as starting to shave all the heads or anything like that. But you have a ton of experience with it, so I wanted to quickly talk to you about maintenance because it's not as simple as loosening a couple tension rods, swapping out a plastic head on a drum set.
Right.
You got to take the ropes off. You got to do that whole thing.
Right. I'm just realizing I had so much to show my drum room. I forgot to say, let me show you my shop. This is where I fix drums, and here's my skins. And here's
that's when we come over.
Yeah, we'll hit that too.
That's cool.
For sure. So if you could talk just a little bit about like maintaining a lot of these drums, djembes being the most obvious, but
right.
But what have you had to do?
Yeah, well, so some drums don't need much. You got you a metal Doombeck, they don't need much. That's the beauty of them. They're lightweight. They're really cool. You get you a traditional hand-carved, hardwood, or they can be softwood too, but a djembe with a goat skin on it. Well, what they do is they have steel rings, which is relatively modern. In the old days, the old teachers say, they weren't able to tune drums like they can now. So they have like a quarter-inch round piece of steel, and you have two of them. So if you can think about the drum sitting here, you get the skin and you soak it for an hour or two, get it wet, and it flops over. Well, a ring goes down, and then you pull the skin up like so, and another ring goes down and sits on the other one, so the skin is squeezed between the two of them. And the top ring has cradle knots that go zoop, 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 zoop on the bottom, when there's a ring on the bottom, lower on the drum as well, so verticals go up and down from these cradles that are tied on the rings all the way on the drum. So you have to tighten them up slowly. You got to keep the rings level. It's easy to get it screwed up, get it wrong. So that's what you're dealing with is a couple of steel rings, and nowadays we have rope. People are typically using 4 or 5 millimeter super low stretch stuff that's been developed for sailing and climbing and different applications. They got rope that's like incredibly strong for 4 and 5 millimeters that can take. And to get a traditional drum, if you want to play it like what you would call solo tuning, they have so much tension, you'd be astonished. I break a sweat a couple of times getting a drum up to speed. You can have your drum tuned low or high. Some of the great masters that have come through the States, Kungbanan Konde and Famadou Konate, these are some famous names. They're like, what we've played with mostly is, the soloist has got one, da, da, da. Everybody else is lower, and they're different, which adds some color. So you don't necessarily have to have a drum that's hyper cranked, but you can now. You got $1,000. You can go to, Woola Drum. You can go to Drum Skull, and they got some drums that will just blow you away for $1,000. And you look at violins and what they cost. It's like it's a hell of a deal.
Oh yeah, drums. Just sorry to interrupt, but the cost of entry as far as instruments are concerned, drums is low.
Right.
I mean,
really
you get a whole drum set for $500. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds it's still $500. Not saying
Violin,
but
those things
compared to
flute,
it's not thousands of dollars to get
saxophone.
something. And
Yeah.
you can buy,
If you're priced out
a
a
couple
high-end
pieces.
sax.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, but a $400
Yeah.
or $500 djembe,
Right.
That's
What
credible.
more do you need?
Right.
Jeez,
Right. So, there's a way of, once you have the rope and they're tuned like that, there's a way of running the rope between them and make it so that they pull together and it adds tension down. So you can tune the drums that way. But the main thing with the skin djembe is don't get it wet. I don't take my really cranked ones out even in really moist air. I like to keep them inside.
I have a nice authentic djembe. I've had it for a number of years. I think maybe mid-2000s I got this thing.
Right.
And it sits in my drum room, and I don't take it out either. I've never had a lick of issues with it. A lot of guys, when they're purchasing rope-tuned djembes, are real scared of that. They're like, oh my gosh, well, what happens if I, break this? And I'm like, well, you know what? You do have to be careful with it. It is a musical instrument, so I don't take mine out. But if I did, I would certainly have a bag for it. But it's held its tuning all these years, and it still sounds good. Still sounds great.
Yeah, you get one tuned up right and keep it in basically dry air, and they'll stay well. I mean, the most vulnerable thing, one is people don't know any better. They think it's a seat. Oh. They think it's a chair to sit on. I've seen 250-pound guys sitting on my drum at a party. I'm like,
Yeah.
And it didn't break it. It didn't ultimately hurt it, but still, it's a little shocking to see.
Yeah.
I've had to stop myself too, and I've had to stop my band members from putting their beer down on my drum.
Right, and then you got a wet ring. Not good.
also like set up and use my phone to practice, listen to music, and I'm ready to put it down on the djembe sitting next to me. I'm like, nope. I have a table next to me now,
Right.
but I would be like ready to do that. I go, nope, because I tell others not to do that because it's bad for the drum, and I
Right.
don't want to have to. Now that I know somebody, 2 guys that could rehead my djembe
Right,
for me,
right.
maybe I won't care as much, you know.
Right. Well, my
I'll get the
djembes-
sweetheart deal on it, hopefully.
Absolutely. My djembes, I have a cap that fits on it. It's
Yeah.
almost like a toilet seat cover, but you
Yeah.
can get them, kind of nicely made. So I keep if I keep a cap on it unless
a good
it's in my
idea.
drum room. You never know. Dogs love some goat skin. They're gonna love to chew on that for you. So, so protect it from animals, protect it from moisture. And as you carry a djembe, some people I've reskinned a lot of djembes where people didn't think about it, and they're carrying it like so with the big end here, wham into the door jamb, and where the skin goes over the edge. It's quite vulnerable. It's not like a drum set. You got a metal ring protecting it. It's like wham. Poppies up, you're done. So just protect the skin from moisture and animals and impact. If you carry it in a car, lodge it so it's not going anywhere. You don't want to be hitting. I've had to reskin plenty of drums. I hit the brakes, bam, there went the drum.
Yep, exactly.
And don't leave it in a super hot car.
Don't leave it in your car. And even with cajones, with drum sets, with all sorts of stuff, I can't tell you how many times I tell someone and the light bulb goes off in their head, I say, buckle it in like a person.
Right.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is play it.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You need to
Play
play the instrument.
Yeah.
Drums want to be played.
That's it. That's what their purpose is, And we talk, Shawn and I talk a lot about guys being afraid to take drum sets out. And I'm kind of getting tired of hearing that conversation.
Right. Yeah.
I'm almost to the point, that should be a crank it up, turn it down or something.
Yeah.
Taking out nice drums, In
What'd
my
you get 'em
mind,
for?
I'm like, that's what it's for.
Yeah,
man.
you
know
got
what I mean?
a
Like,
nice drum
some
set to
people
take
are,
out.
and I'm not saying you want to take your really super nice kit to some basement show you're playing in Philly or something.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? You don't know what to expect, and people are carrying it in and out. You're going through a hatch, like in the basement, it's raining. Like, no, I'm not saying that. But at the same point, it's like, what else are you gonna do with it? You're just gonna sit, let it sit there and look at it. You know what I mean? And I understand how it'll hold its value. Play the drums, man. That you bought them because you love them, and I encourage people to play them. Obviously, be careful about certain things, but I think we've gone too far the other way, where people are babying their gear a little too much, where they're not actually playing as often as they should.
Yeah, around Nashville, I see a lot of people with a cajon.
For sure.
And some of them got a foot pedal hitting the bass. And myself, I'm a little older, a lot of leaning over for very long.
Yeah.
It gets tiresome. So Meinl, I don't know if you have these, but they have brushes like things that are made for the cajon. Yeah, they're fantastic. So you can just totally sit up and wail.
We've also got slap top cajones, which they're like T-shaped.
Yeah.
And you play on top kind of like a conga.
And also, they have a cajon stand. I know it's kind of funky, kind of almost defeats the purpose of the cajon because you're supposed to sit on it and play, but it sits in a stand so you can stand up and play the instrument.
That's cool.
Which is kind of cool,
Really nice for a multi-percussionist that has, say, congas or some other drums or bells or even a drum set. You can angle it at whatever angle and just reach over and just play
Or like
on
he
it.
said, you're bending over, sometimes that's a little uncomfortable, but you like the sound you get out of a cajon.
Yep,
right.
It's a beatbox, you got the snares in there, it's just
And what's one
so
stand?
much fun to play.
Compared to a whole drum set, or what's one stand?
Forget
you can handle
about
one
it.
stand.
Forget about it.
You
Yeah.
can handle one piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, do you have anything else that you'd like to comment on as far as the Love drums or anything? Are you playing out at all in town or?
Well, no, the Love drums presently, pretty much all of my people are 750 miles
Gotcha.
away.
I wonder. Yeah.
Although
gotcha.
I'm kind of looking for, who wants to play, who wants to come over and, I'll show you some grooves and play. And if it worked out to be something that could play out, I'd be up for that. I've done that a lot. But so right now, I don't really have a performing group good to go. Though I know a few drummers, if somebody said, hey, man, we got this thing, really need you, I'd like, one local treasure, relatively local treasure is Tammy Hessen. She studied a lot with the great drummer Mamadi Keita, and she's really accomplished, knows a ton. She teaches around, and so there are people around who have plenty high enough level to play that some sort of love drums could happen. But right now, recording is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and playing at my neighbor's birthday party on a drum set.
Hey,
that
man.
was a super fun drum circle. And I've met a couple of guys who are experts with violins. One guy who's played in orchestras all around Pennsylvania and in Europe, and another guy who's teaching summer camps. And he's like, these guys are just like incredible. So they're like, yeah, just throw me a groove down. I want to improvise over it. You know, I think they've played so much where I'm playing somebody else's music and I'm reading. For them, it's it can be a real joy to just just
improv.
throw me down something. And make it weird, give me a 7, give me a 5, which I can do a little bit of, or something Middle Eastern,
But it challenges you.
Yeah, yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, and can I hold this nice and steady like
That's
I did
right.
the other day for 12 minutes?
Yeah,
we had a guitar player and this guy on his electric violin, and just like it's incredible. Like, man, you really went some places, and then he's plucking it, just like so.
It's incredible.
So I'm playing with violin players as well, and actually,
cool.
my a lot of us get some kind of church gig.
Yeah.
I met one of the violin players is a Jewish man, and he said, well, we have these Friday night services where we play these, and they're beautiful pieces of music. So I'm doing occasional church gig at the Temple Bethel locally.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, a lot of local drummers listen to this podcast. You want to get together if you're interested in learning about that sort, any sort of hand drumming or West African specific or anything like that.
Right.
Come out to a drum circle.
Yeah.
First and foremost, come
Yeah.
out to a drum circle.
We're here this coming. Of course, right.
Saturday.
This will be dated, but Saturday. What's the date of Saturday?
the
I don't know.
8th.
But it's going to happen again.
It's gonna happen again.
They keep coming. Yeah. So
Yeah,
And we're
this
gonna keep getting facilitators in. I'm not gonna let him go. Even if he
No.
moves back to Nashville, I'm gonna have him come up here for drum circle.
No, we're happily here.
All right, good. We're happily here. It's on the record. He's not leaving. But Ed, thanks so much for being here, man.
What a pleasure. What a
I
pleasure.
can't thank you enough.
So glad you guys are here, and what a resource for everybody just to have this kind of gear here and this kind of knowledge here.
Yeah. We're glad you're here, dude. Absolutely. This
Thanks.
is tremendous.
Thanks.
I can't wait for this Saturday.
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
We'll have some fun.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us at Drum Key here. We love and appreciate all your support. Shop at your local drum shop. If you don't have one, we'd be happy to adopt you, but that's how this whole thing keeps working, keeps going. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.